You may remember a month ago I took part in the Miziziziz challenge on his channel. Well, recently he started the chain letter jam, where game developers are meant to nominate other game developers to create a game based on theirs. And a fellow friend of mine, Vimlark, nominated me. So in this video, I will make a perspective-changing game. Okay, so before I start making this game, I need to ensure that it's themed around Vims. Now, Vim's game is a letter boss fight game. You collect letters to make a word to damage the enemy. He also has a parachute that lets you glide. With that in mind, I started a new Unity project, and began by creating a simple top-down controller. I also made a separate mode and mechanic for a platformer, because as I said, I want the game's perspective and genre to change. I wanted to make a similar effect to a popular game known as 2D and Top D. To accomplish this in Unity, I decided to play around with the camera and its rendering. In Unity, a camera can have two different modes, perspective and orthographic. This basically means whether it can render depth or not. Now, because my game is 2D, I would typically use an orthographic camera, but in this case I needed to use perspective to make the change seem noticeable. I created two states for the camera, a top-down state and a platformer state. To be able to switch between them, I set up a lerp system. What this does in my case is smooth the transition between the two cameras. It's a super useful bit of code that I use all the time in my games. It basically allows for a smooth transition between two different positions or rotations. With that in mind, I set up the player switching system. Now with a simple flick of a boolean, we can change the player's mode. This will also trigger the camera to change too. Next, I needed to make the letter/word system. To make it similar to Vim's game, I wanted the program to give me a random word and then generate the letters of that word at a random position. In this case, I created a string array, where I would input all the words that I wanted it to choose from. The program would then pick a random word and separate the word into a character array by using a for loop. Finally, I would assign these letters to an object and instantiate them at a random position. To make the letters move, I added a rigid body to them and added force in a particular direction. Finally, depending on the word that is picked, I went ahead and created a text object at the bottom of the screen, so the player can see what word they are trying to make. Now, the perspective change is cool, but to make it seem even better, I added some cubes behind the walls. This makes the effect seem more significant and just looks awesome. It also adds that 3D effect. Now, you may remember a not so popular game called Undertale. This game has a quite noticeable boss fight, in which the player has to basically dodge a bunch of stuff that is launched at him. Well, I'm just gonna steal this idea and plop it into my game. And look, now we have some obstacles that we actually have to dodge. Free real estate, am I right? No, but genuinely this system is super simple to make. I just created an obstacle object and generated it every so often at a random position. I added some colliders to it so the player can't actually collide with it. To also mix up the system, during the platformer mode, a different obstacle was created. It was now time to meet the enemy. The setup literally took a few minutes due to the enemy's simplicity. I created a health bar for it made from sprites, and then decreased its size depending on its health. I set up some animations to not make it look so static, and created some particles for when he takes damage. Oh, I should probably mention the player can now actually collide with letters. Once a letter is collided with, it turns yellow at the bottom. This is a good indication of what letters are left, and if you do miss a letter, then no worries, it just comes around again. Finally, once a word is complete, the mode will change and a new word is generated and the enemy will take damage. I also made a health bar for the player and allowed him to take damage. It was made the same way that the enemy health bar was made. With pretty much the game mechanics done, I opened a sprite and started creating some sprites. Now honestly, these aren't my best work. It's probably been about a year since I worked with pixel art, and god, I'm so bad. I ended up creating the enemy, which by no means is my design. It's actually the design Vimlark used in his games, which is actually the design Miziziziz made. It's a bit confusing. After some time, more sprites were created, including this parachute, which looks like a helmet, I'm aware. Nonetheless, I imported it into Unity and assigned all the sprites. I created a few more particles because why not, it makes the game look nicer, and set up some really bad, quick transitions that don't work half the time. I added replayability into the game and made some post-processing. I also spent maybe a total of 10 minutes making the main menu, the how to play screen, and the game over screen. The final thing was to add some music and sound effects. For the sound effects, I used BFXR or SFXR, I don't even know the difference. They essentially can help you make some 8-bit sound effects. I set them up in Unity by using a single audio output object. Probably not the most efficient way, but oh well. And then for the music, I used Chrome Music Lab, and literally spent like a minute on stream making it, because I didn't have much time. I also set it up in Unity, and the game is essentially done. So here is the final product. The game is available on itch.io, but I should mention there is a few bugs that may occur. I couldn't really dedicate too much time to this game, which is why it's not so polished. I will try and release an update on it with some fixed bugs in a few days, but don't worry, it is playable, just mainly a few timing/visual issues. And before I end this video, I want to mention a few things. Currently, I'm releasing weekly videos on this channel, and don't worry, that is staying. I also stream on Twitch nearly every day, so if you're interested in behind the scenes stuff, there's a link down below. But some may remember, I do have a second channel. I've currently only got one video on it, but I'm actually planning on releasing more. My second channel will be dedicated to tutorials. How often they come will depend on how much time I have, but I really want to make some more tutorials and it's a great place to post them. They will be Unity related, but it will range from particles, SFX, mechanics and other stuff. I might also make some Blender tutorials along the way. All of the source code for those tutorials and SFX will be available on my Patreon soon, so links to all of that down below. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and you can play mine, Vim's and Miz's game down below. And I want to thank my Patreons, TARDIS IT Guy, Smoking Vita and Nicole Dance. This is it for this video guys. If you have enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and leave a like, and I will see you guys later. Bye!